Missing link tattoo.
Dad,
I'm here.
I need cash fast. Yes, I'm dead.
Just stay put till I get there.
Before he picked up a broadsword, Mel Gibson had already built a career on surviving chaos.
5 outstanding directors, all first-time nominees, have crafted 5 memorable films. Motion pictures of skill and imagination that show every promise of standing the test of time.
From the dust-choked highways of Mad Max to the grief-laced explosions of Lethal Weapon, he embodied the haunted, hardened hero. But in 1995, Gibson took on a legend far older and bloodier than any he'd faced before, the true story. Well, Hollywood's version of Scottish freedom fighter William Wallace. With Braveheart, he didn't just step into the past, he helped rewrite it, wielding not only a sword but a director's vision. What began as a bold leap into historical drama became a visceral.
I don't write speeches, but I would like to thank a few people.
Oscar-winning saga that blurred history and heroism and redefined Mel Gibson from action star to cinematic icon. So, to jump back for a second, if we've already seen that hardship and personal tragedy are the fuel behind Mel Gibson's most iconic roles, then Braveheart was the inevitable next step.
The sin of the first people, original sin, that the gates were closed to us, to eternal life.
But this time, Gibson didn't just act, he helmed. As both star and director, he reached the kind of peak most filmmakers only dream about, winning the Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture in a single, thunderous strike. At the heart of it all was William Wallace, a real-life Scottish warrior turned cinematic myth. Wallace wasn't just fighting for freedom, he was fighting back against a system that had crushed his people, broken his heart, and dared him to kneel. And under Gibson's direction, that struggle felt raw, violent, and deeply human.
A place like this can humiliate you. And it can humiliate you, it can be humbling. I mean, it does rip your life to pieces.
Set in a time far removed from the dystopian wastelands of Mad Max or the concrete jungles of Lethal Weapon, Braveheart took us back when Scotland lay under the brutal heel of British rule and the shadow of William the Conqueror's elite army loomed large. In Braveheart, Gibson doesn't just direct from behind the camera. He charges into battle as William Wallace himself. A rugged, fiercely loyal Scotsman, Wallace is thrust into legend not by ambition, but by loss. When his wife is brutally murdered by one of the king's soldiers, vengeance becomes the spark, but freedom becomes the cause. What starts as a personal vendetta quickly escalates into a rebellion as Wallace rallies a nation of farmers and fighters who've had enough of British tyranny. The viewer is never left in doubt. We're placed firmly beside the Scots, witnessing the injustice, brutality, and exploitation they endure. It's a world where dignity is stripped and the crowned soldiers rule with unchecked cruelty. But Wallace, with blue war paint and fire in his heart, dares to push back, making his stand not just unforgettable, but unshakably righteous. The reluctant hero, cornered by tragedy, driven by love, is a pillar of great storytelling, especially in historical dramas. Think of Humphrey Bogart's Rick in Casablanca, who tries to stay out of the fight until love drags him into resistance. Or Jack Nicholson's Jake Gittes in Chinatown, unraveling a web of corruption far bigger than he expected, all because he couldn't walk away. Mel Gibson's William Wallace belongs in that lineage. He doesn't crave war or glory. He wants to live quietly, love deeply, and stay far from politics. But when cruelty crosses the line, when love is taken from him, he rises. That emotional ignition is classic Hollywood, and it's something Gibson has threaded through nearly all his directorial work. The Passion of the Christ, Apocalypto, even the quieter, modern set The Man Without a Face. No matter the era or setting, his protagonists are often men burdened by isolation, forced to carry more than they ever asked for, and willing to burn for something bigger than themselves. Gibson's direction in Braveheart is gritty, grounded, and visceral, almost tactile. The mud, the sweat, the blood, it's all there, pulling us into the raw texture of 13th century Scotland, where cleanliness is a river and war paint is war armor. The visual language is classic but effective, sweeping wide shots for scale, intimate close-ups for emotion, and those iconic low angles that elevate the Scottish rebels to mythic status. Before this, Gibson had tested his hand at period tragedy with Hamlet in 1992, but Braveheart was a different beast, a sprawling blood-soaked epic where every frame swings with purpose. The aesthetic and narrative choices here would ripple across future historical action films. You can feel its DNA in The Patriot, where Gibson once again plays a family man turned reluctant warrior, and in Gladiator, which borrowed the structure of loss-driven vengeance and a hero too powerful for ordinary enemies. These are stories where one man stands against the world, and the world needs an army to even have a chance. At its core, Braveheart delivers the kind of mythic arc that Hollywood has always loved. A hero is wounded, he rises, and he fights not just for himself, but for something eternal. While we won't spoil everything, let's just say the film doesn't promise safety, but it guarantees legacy. Even if you've only seen the poster, the one with Gibson in full battle cry and war paint, it's worth diving in again. Because this isn't just a revenge saga, it's screenwriting 101, epic filmmaking at full throttle. And yes, it took home Oscars because it earned them. For Mel Gibson, Braveheart wasn't just a career high, it was a moment where he fused myth and man, story and spectacle, and showed the world he could build legends from both sides of the camera. With 2 sequels to The Passion of the Christ on the horizon, he's far from finished with reshaping epic history on screen. Different time, different continent, but the same blueprint. Place a man in an impossible moment and let him fight for meaning. That's not just a Gibson theme, it's a Braveheart promise. Long before it became Oscar-winning spectacle, the story of William Wallace was rooted in one of the most volatile chapters of British history. In the late 1200s, Scotland was a kingdom without a king, torn apart by succession crises and power plays. England's King Edward I, also known as Longshanks, seized the opportunity, tightening his grip on Scotland through brutal force and feudal manipulation. What followed was less a war and more a slow strangling of Scottish identity. Into that chaos stepped Wallace, not as a general, but as a commoner driven by personal loss and rising public fury. While Braveheart takes dramatic liberties, amplifying romance, simplifying alliances, it captures the emotional truth of the era, a land divided, a people oppressed, and one man who dared to defy the most powerful empire in Europe. It's this blend of historical fracture and cinematic fire that elevates the film beyond biography. Wallace may not be exact in the facts, but he's exact in the feeling. Rebellion, born from injustice, can echo through generations. Braveheart isn't just a film, it's a battle cry, a legacy, and a blueprint for the modern historical epic. Mel Gibson didn't just direct it, he carved it from the same raw stone that shaped the best of cinema, sacrifice, vengeance, identity. From Mad Max to Lethal Weapon, he'd already proven he could break bones and box office records. But here, he proved he could break hearts and win Oscars doing it. In an era obsessed with CGI shortcuts and sanitized spectacle, Braveheart reminds us what cinema looks like when it bleeds for meaning. And Gibson, despite controversies and setbacks, still returns to the battlefield, now crafting sequels to The Passion of the Christ with the same gritty commitment to storytelling that made Braveheart a cultural milestone. Welcome to Blockbuster Dreams, where legends live on. From ancient warriors to cinematic icons, we dive into the films that shaped our world and defined generations. Subscribe, hit like, and join the dream, because every great story deserves to be remembered.